Erev Tov, everybody. Good evening. It's so good to see all of you. Feel free to use gallery view to see each other. Those who are able to turn on your videos, we know you can see us and we'd love to see you too. Those who can't, we're just grateful that you're here to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour, depending how long we each speak, with us connecting. This is a special opportunity to meet two of our interns, our two new interns, Yehudit Mazur Shlomi and Yael Turitz Kaplan. Each have spent a Shabbat at the Bayit, and there'll be many more opportunities to connect with them. Our returning intern, Josh Suatez, is out of the country for a little while and sends his warmest regards as well. He's returning for his second year as a Bayit intern. And for myself, and Rabbinic Bracha and Rabbi Sarah, just a special opportunity for us to be together. It's we were saying together before we opened up the waiting room, it's been a hard day and a hard week, and we're swimming in a lot of challenge, and the Yamim Noraim add intensity and also open up possibility, hope, and promise to these moments. The feeling of walking into shul as Rosh Hashanah comes upon us, to see familiar faces, to reconnect with some of our own families, perhaps our broader Bayit family, and to put on our best faces of hopefulness and honest encounter with each other, with ourselves, and with God, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is what this season invites us to do. And as we prepare ourselves, the month of Elul, which is already halfway over, is our invitation to preparation. And as we prepare ourselves with the call of the shofar, with the slichot that will begin this Saturday night, hope you'll join us for the song circle with Reb Eli and the slichot that follow. We also take this time to share a little bit of sparks of Torah and personal thoughts that are on our minds as we approach the Yamim Noraim. And it's always been our custom in these last few years to have this gathering, to try to make it virtually participatory, in the sense that as we go through each round and each of our rabbinic team members answers a prompt, we invite you to use the chat box to share your own answers to the prompt as well, so we can learn all from each other. And we have brief musical interludes between each round with some of the melodies, ancient and contemporary, of the high holidays. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for being with us. And we're just about to begin with our first round. Round one asks us to share a high holiday text that's meaningful to us and why. And if you want to type into the chat a high holiday text, whether it's part of the tefillah, whether it's a passage from Jewish tradition about the high holidays, a title or a phrase or a little snippet of text, please feel free to type into the chat. We'll give ourselves just 15 or 20 seconds, and then we'll hear from Rabbi Sarah, from Yehudit, from Rabbinic Bracha, from Yael, and from me, high holiday texts that are meaningful to us and why.
Hi, everyone. I love that song. If I were sharing a song later, that's the one I would share. I start humming it as soon as Elul begins, and even before. But our task right now is to share a text. And so I am going to share a liturgical text, but some pieces from the Torah reading and Haftarah that we go through over the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. And what you're going to notice is that a big theme of these texts is noticing. So let me take you through them super fast. We'll read in the stories of Hagar and Abraham and Sarah that Hagar gets sent away. And when she's outcast, the Torah tells us, "V'telech v'teshev la mineged harchik," and she went and sat down a distance away. Ki amra al er'eh b'mot hayeled, for she said, "Let me not see the death of my child." Right? The moment that it's hot outside, she's been outcast, she's thirsty, she's hungry, and she momentarily is convinced that not only she is going to die, but her son Ishmael is going to die as well. And so she sits distanced from him, and she doesn't want to see. She wants to close her eyes. She wants to not see. And a few psukim later, we're told actually God had to open her eyes. V'yapkach Elokim et einei and God opened her eyes, and only then did she see a well of water. And the Mefarshim say that the well was actually always there, but she actually just couldn't see properly. But there was something, some kind of cataract, something that God had to dislodge in order for her to see that which was right before her eyes. Sometimes it's really hard to notice things that are right before our eyes. And then the next day on Rosh Hashanah, we read the quintessential story of Akedat Yitzchak. And there too, the story begins with the wordplay of seeing and distance. B'yom shlishi vayisa Abraham et einav, and on the third day, Abraham lifted up his eyes. Vayar et hamakom, and he saw the place, merachok, and the place was distance. Bereshit Rabbah says right there that although hamakom is often thought to have been, it is another name for God, literally the makom, the place was clouded, and therefore God was clouded. It could be both, but there was something enveloping, or causing him to unsee or not see what was right before his eyes. His vision was hazy. And then, as the story evolves, again, Vayisa Abraham et einav, vayar v'hinei ayil, and the same language of lifting up his eyes, and this time his vision was clear. He had clarity, and the clarity right before him was an ayil. Perhaps the ram was the thing that he was supposed to sacrifice all along. Perhaps it was there all along. We don't know. But right now, his eyes are finally opened, and he is no longer distant, but the ram is right there. And then, of course, Abraham names that place Hashem Yireh, because that is the place of seeing. The place of Akedat Yitzchak is a place where vision becomes clear and oral becomes clear in a way. And finally, we see in Yirmiyahu the idea that the same language is used, but this time a little bit backwards. Merachok Hashem nir'eh li. From afar, the Lord appeared to me. It's almost the complete opposite of being distant or feeling distant. This time, even when God is far away from us, God is close. Even when God feels like God is not right next to us, Hashem nir'eh, Hashem sees us. And that's what we have to hold on to. This is a time where it's actually hard to open our eyes and look around us. It's hard to keep our eyes open. We, like Rev Stephen's saying, there's so much darkness. Today was a hard day. Every day seems harder and harder as more and more people fall around us. Eretz Israel is on our minds, on my mind constantly. And I just want to bury my head in the sand. But Vayisa Anav, we got to open our eyes. We got to lift up our eyes. We have to not feel distant. We have to engage and pray and hope that God is not distant, and we feel God's closeness as well. And I'll just end by saying that The Gemara in Shabbos says that at the end of days, Rabbah imagines that when a person is led to his final judgment, the person is asked, Havanta davar mitoch davar? Were you able to see that which is important to you? Were you able to see the things that really matter? Were you able to see? And so I wish us that as Rosh Hashanah approaches, that we're able to open our eyes and to see the things that matter, to feel God's presence, to feel God's closeness, and in the same way to reflect on what should be close to our hearts and embrace it and keep our eyes open, keep noticing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yehudit.
Hi everyone. I would like to talk about actually about a very little text that is all over. If you look at your Machzor on Yom Kippur, this tiny text, Anu Amecha Ve'ata Elokeinu, is all over the place. We repeat it so many times that inevitably I find myself every Yom Kippur, already after the services, going back home, singing it. And while I haven't found a version that we sing in my shul, but I did find another version, and I would love for you to hear it. It's a very short one, so hopefully you will think about this text as much as I do.
כי אנו עמך ואתה אלוקינו, אנו בניך ואתה אבינו. כי אנו עמך ואתה אלוקינו, אנו בניך ואתה אבינו.
I would like to point out that most of the song is about our subservience, so to say, to God, but I especially like this line, which says, Anu nachalatecha ve'ata goraleinu. And to me it implies our inner lives to be interwoven kind of with Hashem's outlook on the world. And yes, the times are really tough, but if we see Hashem as our inheritance, then hopefully we are assured that He's still our destiny.
Thank you so much. Rabbinic bracha.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I was looking back on previous years. There are so many that feel so beautiful to me and evoke what the high holidays mean to us. But this year, I am focusing on the pieces that we add to the Amidah prayer that we all say together, which are only said from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur. I'll put them on the screen so we can look at them together. So you may remember that we say this in our private prayer, but then when we do the repetition with the Chazan, we all say it out loud together. I'm reading them in Hebrew, but I'll also give you the English translation. Zocheinu l'chaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chotvenu b'sefer ha'chaim lemancha Elokim chayim. Remember us for life, sovereign or God who delights in life, inscribe us in the book of life for your sake, God of life. Mi chamocha v'rachamim u'rachaman Zocher Yitzurav L'chaim Berachamim. And that is, who is like you, our compassionate Father, who remembers God's creatures for life with compassion. And then the most important one is that we change Hakel HaKadosh, the holy God, to Hamelech HaKadosh, which is the holy king. That's the only one that if you forget to say it, you have to go back and repeat the Amidah prayer. And continuing on, the middle one is only for weekday, but what we say on Shabbat and on the Chag of the 10 days, Aseret Meitzvot, Tov l'chaim tovim kol b'nei britecha. And inscribe everybody, britecha, those Jewish people, those who are part of your covenant, for good life. And then the last one is something that we often sing out loud, B'sefer Chaim Beracha V'Shalom. So that's also about inscribing. May we, the entire house of Israel, be called to mind, inscribed for life, blessing, sustenance, and peace in the book of life. And I was so interested in this. When did it come up? When was it added? And it turns out that there is a whole machloket, controversy about whether we can add it or not. Because the Amidah prayer, which is our central prayer, was created by our Chazal, by the rabbis in the Gemara. And we don't generally add anything afterwards. We're considered not on that level, and therefore we don't have the right to add anything. And starting from the year 800, the reason we know about it is because somebody, I have his name here, Pirkoibin Baboy, I probably don't know how to pronounce it. He only said it because he was so opposed to adding this. Because he said, wait a minute, Rabbi Yehuda said you're not allowed to add. He says this in the Talmud. He says, you're not actually allowed to add personal prayers in the first 3 brachot, the ones that open every Amidah prayer. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokei Avotenu. That whole beginning, we don't add anything. That's like holy of holies. You're not allowed to touch it. And then you should add it in the body. And the only one that he agrees to is that last one. B'sefer Chaim. But then there's a whole back and forth. Wait a second. No. We're actually okay with this. And why are we okay with it? In the end, it's decided by the Rosh, one of our great scholars. He says it's okay. And you know why it's okay? Because it's in the plural. You are not asking for your personal requests from God. You are asking for all of Israel. And because we're asking for everyone together, then it's okay to add this. And also, I think they couldn't push back against what everybody was saying. Whoever added it, whoever came up with it, it felt special. But what I want to say is that for me, I feel like everybody around me is doing the same. We're all focusing. We're trying to remember to add the additions. By the time we finally get it on Yom Kippur, we stop. And then we're like, it's kind of like Pesach. You finally remember where you put the silverware or the pots, and then, Pesach is over. But I know that everybody around me is trying to do it as well. And we're all in it together. And more than that, it makes me pay attention to the Amidah prayer because I need to think about where to add the insertion. So I appreciate it for the message that it gives, but I also appreciate it for the mechanics. Somebody had the wisdom to think of how to make even our regular Amidah prayer, I'm not even talking about Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, which is of course different from all the other ones, but the weekday and the Shabbat Shuvah, the one in the middle, to make them more meaningful, more powerful, by making us focus and think about the words, and also by having all of us in the repetition of the Amidah say it together out loud.
Thank you, Rabbinic Bracha. Yael.
Hi. So I immediately thought of the Hineni prayer that the Chazan says at the beginning of Musaf, both on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's a solo. The Chazan says it, all on his own. I think often it's easy to kind of get lost and not really pay attention to what he's saying. But I have the privilege, I've grown up with my father being a chazan on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in the shul that I grew up in. And listening to someone that I know so well say this prayer, which is so vulnerable and so self-defacing, and getting up and saying out loud fears about not being worthy to do the job. It's always been incredibly meaningful for me to hear him say this prayer. I know how seriously he takes the job as a chazan, and I know that every chazan all around the world who's saying this prayer similarly takes it incredibly seriously, and it just to me feels like one of the most genuine moments of kavanah, of focus and prayer of the year. And I just love listening to my dad, but also any chazan say this tefillah.
Thank you so much. So wonderful to hear from everybody and just journey through the liturgy and the texts of our tradition together. I was feeling today, as things just feel more and more overwhelming and out of control in the world, about the instinct, hopefully not to turn away in light of what Rabbi Sarah said, but to focus on what I can control. And I was thinking about this passage from the Rambam in the laws of tshuva, Hilchot tshuva, the laws of repentance. The Rambam is talking here about kind of things that sometimes are hard to wrap our heads around, the mathematical counting of mitzvot and averot, and how we figure out the way the world is judged. And he talks about that in chapter 3, and that some sins are weighed more heavily and some mitzvot and merits are, more significant, even against the backdrop of the idea that we don't know the relative weights of different mitzvot and averot and don't necessarily think about them in that sort of mathematical way. But after talking about all of that, and then talking about the power of the shofar as the wake-up call to do the things that we can do, he then says this, I think, somewhat famous framework for how we want to try to think about our actions. He says, "Lefichach tzarich kol adam sheyireh atzmo kol hashana kula ki'ilu chetzio zakai v'chetzio chayav." We should look at ourselves as though over the course of the year we hit it just even. Our merits and demerits, or our mitzvot and mistakes, the things we did right and the things we did wrong, perfectly balanced. V'chein kol ha'olam chetzio zakai v'chetzio chayav. And not just you, but actually the ledger of the entire world is perfectly balanced between points and minuses. And therefore, chata chet echad harei hichria et atzmo vet kol ha'olam kulo lechaf chova v'garam lo hashchata. This is great Jewish guilt here right in front of us. Therefore, if you sin one time, you destine yourself and the entire world to the side of responsibility, of guilt, and cause destruction, like an overwhelming thought to undertake. And the opposite, which is asa mitzvah achat, if you did just one mitzvah in that very moment, which is any and every moment, hichria et atzmo vet kol ha'olam kulo lachaf zechut, then the whole world turns to the side of merit, yourself and the whole world. V'garam lo lahem teshua v'hatzala, and the whole world is rescued and saved, as it says in Mishlei, v'tzadik yesod olam. A righteous person is the foundation of the world. And here the Rambam's interpretation is so powerful. Ze shet sadak hichria et kol ha'olam lizchut v'hitzilo. Not a righteous person is the foundation of the world, but a person who does one righteous act can bring the entire world to the side of merit and bring deliverance and salvation to themselves and others and to the whole world. And that's why we customarily give as much tzedakah as we can and do as many mitzvot as we can, especially in this time from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. And the final thing he says, and the whole world, or the Jewish people, have the custom to get up at night on these 10 days or early in the morning and pray in shul with words of supplication, our slichot, ad sheyeh or hayom, until the day breaks. And this very last bit, the idea that because of all this we try to wake up early and daven, is so striking, because normally I think, or sometimes we think about the davening as trying to convince God to forgive us. But if the whole motivation here is to convince ourselves to do just one more mitzvah, then the davening is actually meant to awaken ourselves It's meant to remind ourselves of how high stakes these times are and how just one good act can make such a huge difference. So, of course, I take with a grain of salt the weightiness of the idea that one wrong step could have such, disastrous effects. But I also take as inspiration the framework of thinking about the fact that one good deed could fix the world. And there's so much we don't have control over, but we do have control over our actions, and those very actions could make all the difference. All right, we're getting ready for round two. Our question in this second round, and this can be interpreted as widely as each of us wish, is what's giving you hope or strength for 5786? Could be a story, could be a teaching, could be an experience we've had. What's giving us hope or strength for 5786? Feel free to type into the chat something that's given you a little bit of inspiration or optimism or hope for the days ahead, for the year ahead. We'll give it just a few moments with the Elul Niggin, and then we'll go in the order of Rabbinic Bracha and Yael, myself, Yehudit, and Rabba Sarah.
I really had to think about this question, Rav Stephen, especially today. This week has been such a hard week. And I remembered a story that I received from my son-in-law in Israel that I received about a week ago, maybe a little bit less. It was a message that he asked us all to read. It was in Hebrew. I did translate pieces of it into English for this group. And I think that is often what gives me hope, is when I read or hear about stories of resilience, stories of community, stories of people joining together, stories of people caring about each other. That's always what it comes back to. So I'm going to share with you some of the messages that this young boy said. I don't have his name with me right now, but he's a soldier, so he's pretty young. And he was seriously injured in the war in Israel in June of 2024. So he's already been struggling with recovery for a year and a quarter, and only now is he finally leaving the hospital, moving to rehab. And he shared what lessons he's gleaned even just so far. I want to share some of those with you. This is what gave me some chizuk, some strength, some support. So the first thing is savlanut, patience. That at the very beginning of his journey, one of the top doctors said to him, listen, whether or not you are patient, it will take exactly the same amount of time for you to recover. So I want to recommend to you that you be patient. And he said to us, the boy, with or without, he said, we all go through difficult and challenging times. Sometimes we need to focus on short-term goals, and sometimes it helps us to look at the long-term goals to realize that we need patience. His second message was emunah v'mashma'ut, belief in God and meaning. And he said he learned that he felt there was meaning to him being in this world, and he wants to give meaning to his life. And that is what helps him be more optimistic and less angry. His belief in God and that he has purpose is what helps him get through the hard times. And lastly, he said appreciation. He doesn't take anything for granted anymore. He said like this, that I can think, desire, love, create, learn, and live, that I'm able to speak and communicate, that I'm able to breathe on my own now, that I can turn my head to the right and left with my neck, that I can lift my right hand, and that when that happened, I cried with joy, that I can bend my hand to my face with my elbow to scratch my nose. Until now, others had to be seated next to him to do that for him. That I can grab things and my wrist works. That to stand, to run, to jump, each of those actions is rewarding, and he doesn't take them for granted anymore. And most of all, He appreciates the support and love that he received. Taking that thought, as we gather today to feel community, and what does it mean for us to receive? What does it mean for us to give?
Thank you. And thanks to all who are writing in the chat as well. We'd love to see your messages. Yael?
So in a similar vein, what's giving me strength for the coming year is that I just recently bought my tickets to go to Israel for Pesach, which I'm very excited about. And it's going to be my first time back there since I was there on October 7th, so October 9th, 2023 or so is when I left. And as you can imagine, I left in a it was a rush, it was a mad dash to find a flight, and it was a very anticlimactic end to my what had been a very meaningful and spiritual Sukkot, Yom Kippur and Sukkot in Israel. And I haven't been back since, and it's been hard to have that be the last kind of memory I have of being in Israel. And so I'm really excited to go. I also will be going for the first time with my son, who's 1 year old now, and so he wasn't born at the time. And I'm excited to bring him to Israel and to have a joyous and incredible experience in the land of Israel, and be with the Jewish people.
Thank you. I'm drawing strength as this new year comes from a little moment in the Torah reading, actually, of the second day of Rosh Hashanah. In the aftermath of the Akedah, we're told about children who are born to a relative of Abraham's. I'm going to share my screen and just show it for a moment. Let's see if I can get there. Right after the Akedah, we're told, after Abraham returns, he's told that Milcah has borne children to your brother Nahor, and we count them. Utz and Buz and Kemuel, that's 3. Chesed, or Kesed, Chazo, and Pildash, that's 6. Yidlaf and Betuel, that's 8. Betuel was the father of Rivka. And then 4 more, Tevach and Gacham, Tachash, and Ma'acha. The classic interpretation of the reason for this story being at the end of the Akedah is because it tells us of the ultimate birth of Rivka. And after Yitzchak is not sacrificed, we're told that Rivka is to be born and the future of the Jewish people is assured. Dr. Bryna Levy, in her incredible book, Waiting for Rain, says the following. Alternatively, it has been argued that embedded within this passage is another trial. We are told at the end of the harrowing ordeal of the Akedah that Abraham walked away with one son by the skin of his teeth, as it were. In contrast, his brother Nahor, who had stayed home in Mesopotamia, Terach's son who did not hear the divine call of Lech Lecha, merited 12 children. 12, of course, represents the biblical number of peoplehood, as in the 12 tribes. Abraham would not be blessed thus for 2 more generations. The final note of the story, therefore, leaves us wondering about the measure of God's justice in the world, and suggests that the last trial of Abraham, the forefather of the Hebrew nation, was not the 10th, but rather the 11th. His ultimate ordeal was a test of his long-range vision, of his ability to look beyond the contradictions and the disappointments of the present moment. Such farsightedness was required of Abraham, and would be required of his descendants for Jewish survival throughout the ages. Sometimes we cross a hard moment to a moment of relief, and we turn around and we're faced with yet another challenge that tells us that the goal is further away than we hoped. But we will get there. We have farsightedness, we have vision, and we know that we'll make it. Yehudit.
I also am thinking about the story which connects to Israel and to resilience, and that's a story that's given me incredible hope. I will try to be quick. When Rabbi Sarah and myself, we were last year in Israel in January, and since I have relatives in Beersheba, I almost accidentally ended up in a Russian-speaking, non-religious at all family. I didn't know who the family were. I was just teaching their children, But the woman of the family told me a story about her niece, and her niece's name, and I'm still davening for her, is Michelle Bat Angelica. As you see, no Hebrew names there, nothing. This was I think one, if not the most severely wounded woman from Tatzpaniot. At the moment in January last year, she's been in coma since she was recovered from the base. And I've stayed in touch a little bit with the family. And I think some of you probably have seen videos of this incredible woman who started to be a little bit walking here, most of the on the wheelchair, and incredibly her partner was by her side all the time, and a few months ago they got engaged. She's still not there, she's still not walking, but the idea that people are rallying around this young woman, regardless of the fact that she's not only non-religious, but even her name sounds not religious. I mean, not Jewish, and everybody's trying to help, and she does have a future, and hopefully a very bright future. That gives me hope. And another thing is, yesterday when Rabbi Sarah was talking to us, she used an interesting phrase, radical kindness, and it kind of stuck with me. And I think if we'll look at each other the way that we've seen right now, that people are helping each other, this taxi driver who now probably everybody knows about, helping, if we are practicing this radical kindness, even in small or big measures, then we still have hope.
Thank you, Rabbi Sarah.
Thank you. Want to tell a good old Lubavitcher Rebbe story? So the story goes that before Rosh Hashanah, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would collect thousands of letters known as panim, and they would come by mail from all corners of the world. And he would stand by the door in his office, and he would accept these letters in person. And the truth is, you could actually, and I was looking around, but I couldn't find one quickly enough to share with you. But if you search for the Lubavitcher Rebbe and the panim, you will see pictures of him walking around holding large brown paper bags filled to the brim with letters, with his signature small twinkling eyes, his signature smile and twinkling eyes. And on Rosh Hashanah, the letters would be brought onto the bima in the center of the shul, where the Rebbe would blow the shofar. And I love the imagery of the story, of these letters on the bima filled to the brim with people's tefillah, with people's heartfelt prayers. And I think what gives me hope is the fact that people sent those letters, that there's hope in hoping, that, if I just write down my deepest hopes and dreams and tefillot, and they're close to the Rebbe, they're close to the shofar, those hopes and dreams and prayers are going to go right up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm not usually such a Rebbe person, but there's something touching about that imagery, and it sort of propels me to think, like, what is the prayer? What is the tefillah that I would write down this year? What might it look like? And what would it look like to just, write it down, fold it neatly, and just place it in my machzor for Rosh Hashanah, and stand close to the bima as the baltokeya, the shofar blower, is sounding those tikiyot.
Thank you. All right.
Can I
We've
say
got-
something, Rabbi? It's Joan, but I'm not showing myself right now.
Of course, Joan, go ahead.
Sorry, but I have my situation. So I am very, I guess, I don't know if the word's inspired, but I gain strength that there are Jewish people and Israelis and despite all the tragedy that's going on, that we are very strong and we are fighting and we will continue to fight. And I speak as my mother was a victim of a pogrom and she came out of that and she was very strong. And anyway, to me, that gives me a lot of hope. We have to just really, really keep fighting all the horrible anti-Semitism in the United States and all the things, help Israel in every which way we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Joan. So we're going to make our way to two quick lightning rounds. The first is an invitation to share a song or a melody or a reading, that is to say, a book, an article, some reading material that each of us will be bringing with us into these high holidays. We're going to hear from Yael and then Rabbinic Bracha, Yehudit, myself, and Rabbi Sarah, while we listen to Deborah Sachs-Mintz's Zochrenu L'chaim. Feel free to put into the chat a melody or a book that you're bringing into the high holidays.
What do I like? The Don Alum, right? Is that into the holiday?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I'm still on audition.
Okay, so there are so many melodies and tunes during the high holidays that I absolutely love. But when I thought about this question, I thought about how sometimes I feel at a loss for what to say. We have so many liturgical words written for us, but it feels almost like difficult to express my hopes and desires, similar to what Rabbi Sarah was saying. And I came across in my research with my brother sent me a song by Simcha Leiner that's called Ribono, and I'm gonna play it just once for you all, and it'll have the English translation in the video, and it's a prayer asking God for guidance in a very general sense and in a very broad help me figure out the right way to be and the right path to walk. And I really related to that idea this year and all years as I'm starting the high holidays, like thinking just from the very basic place of asking God to guide me as I go through this process of atonement and reflection. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can you all see that? Okay, I'll just play it once through the...
ריבונו של עולם, אני מבקש ממך בכל ליבי ובזה התפילה שתנחה אותי בדרך ישרה ותודיעני אורח התורה שתדריכני בעמיתך היי וזכני לפני ביתי לעבוד אותך באהבה ויראה אני מבקש ממך.
The song continues to repeat those refrains over again. I'm happy to send it out if anyone would like it.
Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, we can always pop our links into the chat as well. Rabbinic Bracha.
This is a song that comes from the list of Avinu Malkeinos, and I was once in Israel in my shul in Ranana, and I can't remember what the break was, before something, between something, and we sang it for 45 minutes, and it was so gorgeous. For those who know it, I'll put the words up. Please sing it with me. תהי השעה הזאת שעת רחמים וית רצון מלפניך. תהי השעה הזאת שעת רחמים וית רצון אוי מלפניך. תהי השעה הזאת שעת רחמים וית רצון מלפניך. תהי השעה הזאת שעת רחמים וית רצון אוי מלפניך. תהי השעה הזאת שעת רחמים וית רצון אוי מלפניך.
Thank you. Yehudit.
I actually find myself singing Tehillim all the time, especially over the holidays, and while I'm not going to sing, I usually don't sing in public, but I remember one time I was actually at Hadar Learning Circle a few times, and Joey there sang the last parak of Tehillim with a special melody, and I think I would never forget it. Just even the last line, Kol HaNeshama Te'alela, it's just bringing me always to whatever mood I am finding myself in. And additionally, there's a very easy, very old, and very simple song that I think about as something that really brings me hope. I'm not gonna play it, but I will put the video into the chat because it's an old song. And it's a song by Arik Einstein. I don't know if anybody remembers this man, this singer, but the song is Ani ve'ata neshane et ha'olam, Ani ve'ata az yavo kvar kulam, which is we will change the world. You and me, we will change. We will start, and the rest of the people will follow. And I think this type of a message, however simple it is, can bring us hope.
Beautiful, thank you. The melody I've been thinking about over the last number of months, and Rebelli is going to share more about it at the Ma'agal Shirad, our song circle, is the melody of Min HaMeitzar, which was composed by a student in Yeshivat Hesder Yerucham, and there's a beautiful and tragic story about the passing of that melody from Chayal to Chayal, as a number of them fell serving in Gaza. One of those Chayalim was a dear friend of my nephew, Ephraim Yachman, and our Ilan has learned to play this on the piano, and we sing it in our home. It's especially resonant for Rosh Hashanah because it is one of the psukim that we read leading up to Tkiyat Shofar. Min HaMeitzar karati ya, I call out to you from a narrow place. Anani b'merchavya, answer me in an expansive place, and that mirrors the path of the shofar. We place our breath in the narrow end, and the sound emerges out of the wide end. Here's just a few strains from that song, and if you're able to join us on Saturday night for the song Circle with Reb Eli, we'll learn more about it. There's much more, but I'll leave it here and turn to Rabbi Sarah.
Since I already shared that Achila is one of my favorites, I'll just share what I'm reading right now. We've already received a hint to it from Yehudit, and if you want to hear more about why I'm reading it and what I'm thinking about, then come listen to my drasha on Rosh Hashanah. But this is what I'm reading now. It's called Radical Kindness by Angela Santomero, who is a student of Mr. Rogers, and is also the creator of Daniel Tiger. And I'm thinking a lot about radical kindness. That's what's on my mind right now.
All right, we're ready for our final lightning round, our final little moments together. A little bit more of a personal sharing as each of us feels comfortable to express something we'd like to do more of in 5786, something we'd like to do less of in 5786, as briefly as we can express it. And feel free to type in the chat if you want, as you're reflecting on the year that is passing and the year that's coming, something you'd like to do a little more of and something you'd like to do a little less of. I'm going to kick it off in a few moments, and then Rabbi Sarah, Yehudit, Rabbinic Bracha, and Yael, as we hear the IDF cantor, Shai Abramson, with a few strains of Unatana Tokef. So I'm fairly confident that I gave at least one of these answers last year, but that's the nature of our journeys. Something I'm hoping to do more of this year is take more walks, try to convert some more of my meetings into walking meetings, and just be outdoors in our neighborhood, taking in the sights and the sounds and the air and the wind, and moving my body. And something I'm hoping to do less of in the year ahead is take my phone out of my pocket less often. Try to make the mental shift from what did I miss, which is what makes me take out my phone, to what would I be missing, which will hopefully enable me to keep my phone in my pocket. Rabbi Sarah.
One of the ways that Angela Santomero and others who describe what it means to be radically kind, and again, you're going to have to come and learn about what that actually means. But one of the ways in which you do it is in order to care for others, one of the first steps is caring for yourself and being kind to yourself. And so I think a thing I'm going to be doing more of this year is really just trying to think about the ways in which I can care for my body and care for my health and well-being. And so the things I'm not going to be doing are the things that make my body and soul and spirit feel like I'm dragging and not able to function. So to be determined what those things are, but I'm going to figure it out.
Thank you. Yehudit.
I was hoping that I will be actually praying more with the community that I'm trying to find, because I'm kind of in communities, but at the same time between them. And I would love to spend more time in nature, but what I really need and want to do is spend more time with my ailing mother, and that's very important for me. And I would love to do less of worrying in general, personally and about the world.
Thank you. Rabbinic bracha.
Well, first I have to say you totally took mine, Rev Stephen. I wrote that nature and the sun, but I'm going to go to my number 2, which is reading, something I love to do since I'm a child, and reading for pleasure. So drop in for me names of books, reading for pleasure, not for sermons. That's a goal of mine. And thank you, Rebbe Sarah. I learned about Daniel Tiger because I brought little Daniel Tiger figures for my grandchildren. That's how I learned about it. We played a lot of Daniel Tiger when I was in Israel. So now I know the name of the person. That's kind of cool. What I would like to do less of, I'll say it in the opposite way. I'd like to slow down sometimes and not always do things so quickly, to take the time to respond a little bit less quickly, to look at what I'm doing and be fully present and not always think of the next thing that I have to do.
Yeah, El?
So Rabbinic bracha, you took mine. I was also going to say reading, that I want to do more reading, both for pleasure and also for learning. Being in yeshiva, I spend a lot of time reading, but I don't necessarily read about questions I have or topics that interest me. So I'd like to spend more time kind of delving into that. And something I'd like to do less of is judging other people, but also really judging myself. I'd like to do a lot less of that this coming year, and get better at being at peace with who I am and how I'm doing.
Beautiful. Thank you. We said 45 minutes to an hour, and it's been a wonderful hour together to share, to see the faces or just the names on your screen boxes and feel the presence of community and our striving to be our best selves, and the ways in which Jewish text and tradition and melody and morals help us do that. Thanks to everybody who popped thoughts into the chat. Wonderful to see longtime friends and newer Bait friends who are here, and just blessings for a Shana Tova U'Metuka, a healthy, a good, a strong, and a sweet year for all, from all of us, and Josh as well. And we're so grateful to be part of the Bait community with each of you. Shana Tova. Feel free to unmute and wish each other Shana Tova if you wish.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Victory and peace.
Shana Tova and peace.
That order.
Shalom.
Good to
Thank
hear
you.
your voices, everyone. Take care and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.